Take their seats. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight for the County Executive's FY27 Operating Budget Forum and Community Conversation here at the great BlackRock Center for Performing Arts. We very much appreciate everyone who took the time to travel here tonight to be with us, as well as those participating online. My name is Ruben Rosario. I'm the Up County Regional Services Director. And for those that may not know exactly what that means, our office works as an extension of the County Executive's office up here in the Up County. We work together with our amazing county council members and their staff, and our role is to assist with and ensure the delivery of all county government services to the community. Tonight, I have the wonderful pleasure of serving as your MC as we engage in this very important conversation. Before we get started, I would like to extend a special welcome and recognition to a couple of our fabulous leaders that are in attendance, one of which I just respectfully kind of rushed to her seat. Councilmember Balcom, great to see you. Councilmember Evan Glass, I believe, is here. There he is. And I think right now that's all I see. If I'm missing someone, you can throw something at me or raise your hand. I also want to thank the people and organizations that helped put tonight together. PIO, the Office of Management and Budget, the County Executives team, our technology folks, and of course, Katie Hecklinger and her great BlackRock staff who always show us great hospitality whenever we come out. Quick housekeeping note, the restrooms are located just outside the double doors in the back. You just step into the lobby, go all the way to the right. If you find yourself in the parking lot, you went too far, that's illegal, come back in. Since we're talking about the lobby, please remember to visit the tables that we have set up for you. There are several county resources, agencies, organizations that we'd love for you to stop by and interact with them. We think that they have some information that'll be helpful. Designing the FY27 operating budget is a significant effort, as we all know. The process would not be possible without community participation and specifically without the support of our Citizens Advisory Board. Therefore, I would like to invite Ms. Crystal Bivens, our UCAB chair, to share a few words with you briefly.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Crystal Bivens, and I'm serving my second term as the chair for the Up County Citizens Advisory Board. For those of you who may not know much about our committee, we represent approximately 350,000 residents in the area that is north of Shady Grove Road, or almost one half of Montgomery County's landmass. It includes the communities of Boyds, Clarksburg, Darnestown, Damascus, Durwood, Gaithersburg, Germantown, Goshen, Laytonsville, Hyattstown, Dickerson, Barnesville, Bealsville, Tobytown, Washington Grove, Montgomery Village, Poolsville, and part of North Potomac, so quite a large area. We are a 20-member volunteer board appointed by the county executive, who we advise the county executive, the county council, and the director of the Up County region on area needs and priorities, such as transportation, human services, environment, public safety, and other issues of local importance. Among other important areas, we also review and comment on the county master plans and capital and operating budgets. This is the very reason why we are here tonight with Executive Council Member Mark Elrich. So why is it important for you to be a part of this process? The operating budget is a guiding document to establish priorities, reflect community needs, and underscore values. The budget includes funding to support MCPS, Montgomery College, transportation and environmental initiatives, recreation programs, enhancing public safety, and economic development. The county government wants to hear from you at public forums like this one, through emails and letters. So don't be shy. Stay in contact with your council members and let them know about critical matters that are important to your community. Being here tonight is the first step. Some of the items that UCAB supports related to some operational matters. We've noticed that there's an improved need for road and vegetation maintenance, which seems to have not occurred on many heavily traveled roads in Up County. Road upgrades instead of patches. We are looking for improved services for internet and cell phone connectivity where we have blackout areas and can't call for safety measures. We want to support the safety by continuing efforts to build the police force. We're very excited to hear about the partnership with the University of Maryland, where officers can earn credits for college with police training. We see the need for improved mental health resources for youth. We also see a balanced budget holding the line from real estate and income tax increases. We also see the need for equity and accessibility for homeless services, facilities, and mental health offered in Up County with the increased number of homeless in Montgomery County. We're looking for the continued funding of a task force to identify those services that are required in Up County. We also would like a task force identifying community gathering options, mixed use areas with vacant land like maybe ComSat in Up County to anchor communities and provide youth safe areas of gathering. These are just some of the items that we saw as important needs for Up County. Your voice counts, so please make sure that you give us your opinions and speak with your council members. Thank you very much.
There it is. Just to give you guys a quick idea on how the night's going to play out, I'll speak briefly for a few more moments. Then our county executive, Mark Elrich, will come up and provide his presentation on the operating budget. And rest assured, there will be ample time at the end for feedback and questions. If you have more questions after that time runs out, I'm going to offer myself up. You could obviously send me an email at ruben.rosario@montgomerycountymd.gov, or just go to our website, the Up County Regional Services Center website, and you can contact me there. So I don't want you to feel like if you don't get a chance to communicate, that's your last opportunity. Next slide. Your voice matters, ladies and gentlemen. The county executive is conducting 12 community conversations throughout the county over the next few weeks. One of them just took place, aiming to incorporate residents' thoughts, needs, and concerns into the process. In addition to tonight's event and the 10 remaining budget forums, there are other ways for you to share your thoughts. You can participate in public hearings held by the county council. You can apply for positions on various boards, commissions, and committees. We have, I think, about 75 in the county. You can submit emails and letters to the county executive, county council, school board members, and attend public meetings hosted by all of the county agencies in Montgomery County that take place all year long, pretty much everywhere. Next slide. Montgomery County has 5 regions, each supported by a regional services director who act as a local access point for the county executive's office and collaborate with county council members on regional issues. The map up there, that's a nice map. It's a little bit small, but the map shows my 4 colleagues that cover the lower half of the county, while I'm responsible for the upper half, known as the, that's right, you got it, Up County. Just shout them out when you know them. Next slide, please. The Up County spans 250 square miles. It covers nearly half of Montgomery County's land area and has 340,000 residents in it across 18 different, you can call them jurisdictions or census-designated places. It makes the job rather complex, obviously. There's a diverse range of issues to deal with. The area extends, to give you a visual, from Shady Grove Road, dividing Rockville and Gaithersburg, from Shady Grove, if you go north, all the way up to the Frederick Line, and east and west from Laytonsville, all the way to the Potomac River, including Poolsville. Within our region, we have an Up County Regional Services Center just up the road at 12900 Middlebrook Road. It provides various county resources. HHS is a major player in our building and serves over 1,000 daily or visitors per day. The region also includes 2 higher education institutions, Montgomery College's Germantown campus. I saw a rep here a little earlier, Susan. Yep, great to see you. I'm so sure. And the universities at Shady Grove. There's also 3 federal agencies, the U.S. Department of Energy, NIST, and the National Cancer Institute. So it's a very vibrant area. Next slide, please. Thank you. When it comes to investments, no one's really going to deliver the message better than the county executive, but it is important to convey that your voice and your concerns have been and are critical in determining how money is spent for the Up County. While it remains true that there's always a need for more investment, we have a tremendous range of facilities, services, programs, and personnel provided for through the operating budget that serve our county and our Up County specifically in essential ways. The Up County includes 5 public libraries with staff, and the 6 coming to Clarksburg. The Montgomery County Correctional Facility is here with personnel that works relentlessly on rehabilitation efforts. We have 5 recreation centers with specialists and volunteers that offer programs aimed at supporting the underserved population. The Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security staff prepare for and respond to various disasters that impact us. The Shady Grove Transfer Station workers, they handle recycling and waste management. We have 14 fire stations that house men and women ready to respond to all of our emergencies, 3 district police stations with officers protecting lives and property, animal services taking care of abused and neglected animals in our adoption program, alcohol beverage services, the resource recovery facility in Dickerson that disposes of so much waste per year. So we have a lot going on, a lot of investment up here in the Up County. We also benefit from the work of several key organizations and initiatives, such as, and these are only examples, WorkSource Montgomery, which hosted several job fairs in the Up County and provides employment-related services. The Up County Hub, I saw Marco here, whose dedicated staff support 1,700 families weekly, as well as 25 Montgomery County schools as a county-funded food-based provider. The Revenue Authority, who manages our golf courses and air park. The Office of Agriculture, who aid our essential farmers in the agricultural community. And last but not least, BlackRock Center for Performing Arts, who lead and support so many efforts to enhance the lives of our community members. So there's a ton of investment up here in the Up County that we're incredibly proud of. Next slide. Before I got off, we just wanted to share a couple ways for you to get involved. Like I said, it's a very large area, it's very diverse, a lot of different communities. You may ask yourself, well, how do I get connected? What do I do? Well, as I mentioned earlier, there are many boards, commissions, and committees, and we really need representation from the Up County on all of those boards. You can sign up on the county website to receive alerts whenever there's a new opening, so I encourage you to do that. You can also participate in public hearings held by Montgomery Planning. The Germantown Sector Plan and the Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan are both underway, and they're planning. They have a lot of meetings that you could attend and share your voice. You can also reach out to I saw Paula, the Gaithersburg Germantown Chamber of Commerce for opportunities to support the Germantown Town Center Initiative. That's a county investment aimed at creating a more vibrant and economically thriving community here in Germantown. We also have the small grant program called the Neighborhood Events Matching Fund, which provides up to $1,000 to projects focused on promoting community engagement. So if you plan something and you need a little support, you can reach out to us for that. And remember, last but not least, you can always reach out to our office, me specifically, or my program manager, Jake Adler, who's right there. I acknowledged you. Thank you, Jake. And subscribe to our newsletter to stay connected and informed with what's happening up here in the Up County. That's the right slide. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. It's my pleasure to welcome and invite to the microphone my boss, my friend, and your county executive, Mark Elrich.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to take this pointer out of my hand because I start pointing at things and putting the green dot out. It's just a nice toy, but I shouldn't be playing with it yet. So I just want to, first of all, I want to thank this community for one thing that was really important to me. Last time I came up here for a meeting at the Regional Services Center, we were asked if we could locate a homeless shelter up here. You have no idea, or maybe you do, how hard it is to get a homeless shelter located. And, you know, to have a community say, we need this and we want this, so we've already got a team of people working to help make this happen. But I just, you know, wanted to express my appreciation because it's an important thing for the county. And we've got to be able to have these, and we have to have them spread around the county in different locations. And the fact that you all said, we need one up here, I really appreciated that. That's the kind of thing I've asked all the council members to try to locate something in each one of their districts so that we can spread these around the county, not have them all concentrated in one place. Let's see. So I'll talk a little bit about where we are with the budgets. When I started doing this 7 years ago now, I guess, these listening sessions used to be done after the budget was finished by the executive branch, and then they do a listening session. And I thought the listening session should come in front, so the next year we flip the listening sessions starting in the fall before my people are finished. And, I have staff from my departments who come here. People listen to what you're saying. We try to build what we can into the budgets. I can tell you right now, everything is not possible. That's just the nature of budgets and, the cost of running the county and the revenues we have. But we listen and we try to prioritize and deal with some of the issues that have been, front and center for these communities. This slide shows you that, the two budgets we have in Montgomery County. One budget, I'll do the one on the right side first, the capital budget. That's all the big projects and buildings. So if we're building something, that sits in the capital budget. The capital budget, we have bonding authority for $280 million. That's for schools and everything else. It is not enough for schools, and it is not enough for everything else. We've been stuck at $280 million for over 6 years. We were once at $340 million. So basically, we have a policy that's been strangling the county's ability to build things. So if you wonder why we can't just pop something into the CIP, my CIP right now is full for the next 5 years. We'll be adding on an out year, but it's hard to get projects in if they're not already programmed. We're going to be proposing to raise the bond limit back up to $340 million. We think the revenues in the county can support it, and we think we're falling far too behind, particularly on schools. The schools have said they're shifting away from new construction. They're pretty much finished with the big new projects, but now their problem is getting caught up on the maintenance of the schools. And many of the schools are in pretty bad shape, and they have to put some serious maintenance money in. So that's one of the big draws that we're going to see on capital, on the capital budget. We use this money for roads and bridges. We don't have too many bridges, and all the ones we have are small, so I don't have a key bridge over here, thank goodness. And we're not the major road builder. The state handles the state highways, but we do all the local stuff and the repairs. And I will tell you, in all honesty, the road repair budget is many, many years. When I came in and we had our first discussions and we looked at what we were spending each year in the previous administrations, it would have taken about 100 years to do a circle of all the roads we have to do. So we've sped that up, but it's not like we're repairing everything within 5 or 10 years. So that's one of the things we look to put in more money in. We've got our transit centers, and one of the big projects we're doing is down in the Pike and Rose District, and it's North Bethesda. And we have actually get a signature economic development project out of this. We've created this Institute for Health Computing. It's going to be the primary tenant on that. It's from the University of Maryland. They started last year with about 20 employees. They're up to about 140 employees now. They're doing partnerships with life sciences companies in Montgomery County and not in Montgomery County, basically helping people advance life sciences development using AI as a tool. And it's gotten us in front in a very important place in medical research. We are the 3rd largest biocluster in the entire country. And so we have real strengths here, and we're trying to build on those strengths because it's an opportunity for us to grow the economy in a lane that the county is really strong in. The county government we take care of our own buildings, we take care of the parks and pools. Much of the park money goes to park and planning, which actually is direct responsibility for most of the parks. The other side of the budget's the operating budget, and that's the discussion we're doing now with everybody. And this is the operating side of schools. Most of your money goes to teachers. Almost all the money in the school system goes to teachers and staff inside the schools. It goes to police and fire, and you'll see on a later slide, police and fire are the largest single bite on the apple after the school system. We operate health services. This county operates 11 clinics for uninsured people, so we have a very heavy presence in the county. With our health clinics, we provide health services in general. We're doing vaccinations for kids going back to school, so we play a pretty big role in the health space. We operate bus service. Our bus service is free this year. I will say it became accidentally free because we were faced with, we would have had to replace all the fare boxes in the buses, and it would have cost us $19 million. And we're only collecting less than 15% of the fares. because people have just got used to free buses, and people are just getting on buses, and we cannot have our bus drivers confronting people, so it's created a real fare issue. And if I wanted to enforce fares, I'd have to hire police, which would drive up the cost. We would spend more money trying to collect fares than we'd make. So the bus service is now free. It'll probably stay that way, but we are concerned about the federal government, that if they come back and tell us you can't operate a free bus service and get federal money, that may throw a wrinkle into the plans. We have to change things. And obviously we're funding our libraries and parks. We put a lot of money into libraries. I think we have a really great library system in Montgomery County. We made a decision last year to take the library that was scheduled for Clarksburg, which when we looked at it was way too small for Clarksburg, and we actually made it a proper sized library to be like the other libraries we're building in the county. So we recognized that library wasn't going to be sufficient. This kind of gives you an idea about the timeline we're working on. So we're in the September and November period, so this is our community engagement, and we're collecting feedback. In October and November, departments are going to start submitting their requests. And we will probably ask departments to give us requests at several different levels of funding, including reductions from current levels of funding, because we don't know what's going to happen with the budget. And then we review it in December and February. MCPS and the college and Park and Planning submit their requests in the same time frame. So on March 15th, I send the budget to the council, and we then make amendments in April when the state legislature is done, because a lot of times within the last week of the state legislature, particularly anyway after the county's finished producing the budget we send to the council, the state legislature will make changes. So last year we saw additional funding for schools and some other things, and so we send over amendments to incorporate that. And in April and May, the council will hold public hearings, and the council does a review, and we expect approval, as always, by the end of May. Let's see the next slide. So before I talk about priorities, I'll just add something to the last slide. Unlike some years where we had a lot of certainty or more certainty about what our revenues are going to be next year, the President and Congress have radically changed what the likely flow of money is. So we know that departments are being told that you're not going to get funding for various things. So our Head Start program, which funds mostly an immigrant community, funds tens of thousands of children, and they've said if you have any undocumented people in these programs, you cannot fund the programs, and they'll take the money away. If we have to plug the hole for Head Start, that is a big hole to plug. We're engaged in a lawsuit over the tying of this. They have tied, for example, we operate homeless shelters and we have feeding programs. We feed the hungry. Nice Judeo-Christian tradition of housing the homeless and feeding the hungry and healing the sick. And they said that as county executive, since the homeless programs are under me, if an undocumented person's in a homeless shelter, I can be arrested for harboring a criminal. If staff is serving somebody who's undocumented, they could be arrested for aiding a criminal. And a criminal, by definition, is a person who's an immigrant who's undocumented, which, by the way, is not a violation of criminal law. And that's why, they use civil detainers rather than judicial detainers. That's a real problem, and it's going to have, if they go that far, it's going to have a very chilling effect on delivery of services in Montgomery County. And if we don't deal with social services, all you do is create bigger social problems. If people are hungry, if people don't have access to housing, if children are sick, and just from the health implications, if people in the population get sick and there's no medical care, they're pretty sure that it's going to spread to more people. So it's a very uncertain time for us. And so we're going into this budget. We did last year. We said we would build the budget based on normal, but we're prepared to roll things back or change things as we see things unroll. We'll know in October. The big other hit on us would be all those cuts to people that they tried to make in the spring were stopped by judges who said Those positions are in a budget that was voted on by Congress, and they're funded. You cannot cut the positions. I talked to Chris Van Hollen about the budget that they're going to do in October, assuming they actually are unable to, the possibility that they're going to go into continuing resolutions if they can't get an agreement. The budget in October, those positions they wanted to cut aren't in the budget. This is how they funded the tax cut for their billionaire friends. They took this money out of the budget, and those programs won't be there, and those positions won't be there. We stand to lose anywhere, my estimate was 20 to 40,000 jobs. Other people think it might be 10,000 to 40,000. It's going to be lots of jobs. It's going to be thousands of jobs. The loss of those jobs will be a loss of revenue to Montgomery County, because the average federal employee pay in Montgomery County is over $150,000. So you take 150,000 times 10,000 people, and imagine the income tax revenue that the county is not going to see from that. It's going to be devastating to many businesses. It could certainly disrupt the home market if people can't afford mortgages because they lose jobs. That is going to be a serious problem. And we know there are not empty jobs in the region to offset the jobs that are going to be displaced from the federal government. The other side of this is the immigration. In the big bill, there's $40 billion for an ICE army. And that's because they're not going to use the Guard and not going to use regular police. They're going to arm people. They're going to hire lots of people. It takes lots of money to spend $40 billion, lots of people to spend $40 billion. Their goal is to build themselves the capacity to do mass deportations. That's where this is going. And, I just try to get people to think about this. You're deporting mostly non-criminals, mostly people with no criminal record. They pay taxes, which I think a lot of people don't realize, but in order to work in, most of the jobs, they have what they call ITIN numbers. They pay taxes, and they're excluded from benefiting from the money they pay taxes for in general. So you would think that Trump would love this, because basically you're getting something for nothing, but apparently they don't realize that. The real harm is going to be, it'll empty out construction sites in Montgomery County. It's going to do real damage to restaurants and hospitality industry, and it's going to make it harder to function. So there's not going to be any free ride from the things they're talking about doing, and we're concerned about what the impact of them is going to be on the budget, and that will make our job all that much more difficult. But it is what it is, and we have to deal with it. And we'll keep you posted as we see things happening. When we know what the cuts are beginning to look like, we'll make sure people know what they look like, and if we have to adjust our budget accordingly, we'll make them. But if you see us shrinking our budget, it's not because we decided to get miserly. It's going to be because either the well dried out, or we were put in a situation where we can't get funds. So more on that to come. I'll talk a little bit about my priorities, and this has been my priority from the beginning, and it's still my priority. This county has a real deficit in affordable housing. And I think everybody here knows it. We have about 30,000 people earning $50,000 or less. They're paying half their incomes for rent or more, and they cannot find rents they can afford in Montgomery County. Our affordable housing program, which is the MPDU program, houses people who earn about 70 or 75% of very median income for a single person, somewhere around $80,000. People who earn less than that have a very hard time getting housing here. And people who earn more than MPDUs cannot find housing in places like Bethesda, because the starting point in Bethesda won't be matched by somebody making $80,000 a year or $90,000 a year. So it's a real struggle to house people, and that's one of the things we've been dealing with. We've invested between FY23 and 25, $293 million from our finance budget to support affordable housing. And we do this in partnership, most often with developers. We've taken advantage of some cases where Montgomery County actually owns property, and we've been able to make better deals. If the county is the property owner, we can get a better deal in terms of the number of affordable housing units and the depth of the reduction in prices. But if the developer is doing a by right development, we get between 12.5% to 15% of these units affordable to people around $70,000, $75,000. So that's the challenge we face. You can see what we've done in terms of loans, just looking at that graph on the right-hand side there. You can look at all the years before 23, and you don't count COVID. I'd remind people, when I'm done with this, I will have had 2 years of Trump in the beginning, 2 years of COVID, then 2 additional years of Trump at the end. And so that's been an interesting ride to be in a county executive, but I signed up for it, so it is what it is. But this gives you an idea of how much effort we've put into affordable housing compared to what we were doing historically. And this last year, we've either built or preserved 1,948 units. We are in talks with the state about a company that might be able to set up a factory here to produce manufactured housing. They're very popular and they build some really good stuff. I've been out to see their factory with the Assistant Secretary of Commerce and one of the large developers in the county. We're going to see if that gives us the opportunity to break the price points on what housing's costing here. We need to find a way to bring the price down. Government cannot subsidize every housing unit that gets built. To try to subsidize it to affordability, that would absolutely break the bank. So what we're trying to go after is there a way to build housing more affordably in the county. Next. Health and Human Services has been a big issue for us. And so we do a lot of things I think are important. Montgomery Cares and Care for Kids. I think some of you know, they do the 11 clinics in the county. They provide community health and they make sure the kids, get to school healthy and in many cases also fed. We've increased support for developmental disabilities. We have to supplement the money that disability agencies get from the state. Paying the disability community is generally terrible because these are nonprofits that don't have sources of money. They're staffed by people who are on a mission. If you ever talk to somebody, whether it's in mental health or housing, these people are working there because of the love for the people that they're trying to serve, not for the money. But the wages are terrible. And the wages, you could go work at McDonald's and make more than some people are paying for help in their organizations. I have a foster son who's Down syndrome, and you can never get steady work. People would work there until they found the job that paid better, which often meant going to Target or going to work at McDonald's. And dealing with people with disabilities is not always easy. It is apparently easier to flip burgers and things. And so we supplemented so that the wages are above minimum wage and put them more competitive with other, unfortunately, low-wage jobs that are out there. But it's, I'm really grateful we have so many people in this county who are willing to do this work, but they pay a price for doing the work, and we've tried to minimize the damage that they have to incur financially by supporting it. We've expanded health services through our community schools, and we have multiple community schools, and their health clinics play a big role in making sure the students there get the health care they need, and getting to reach them in school is an easy touch. Getting people to come in on, if it's not from school is a difficult thing to do. But when you can talk to a kid in the health room, it does make a big difference. We've put in $39 million between FY19 to FY26 to help people at risk of experiencing homelessness. We've launched short-term housing and resolution program. It's called SHARP. It's $6.9 million, provides 12 months of rental assistance. And we're doing this partly by saving money. We are putting people in motels. It costs us $30,000 a year to put a person in a motel because no one's doing us any favors. And so this program is actually less expensive than moteling. And part of my interest in dealing with looking at modular housing and ways of building housing at a lower price is that for some of the things I've seen, I could build a modular house that would have 20-year life or longer for about 2 years of renting a hotel. So it'd be cheaper for the county to buy units and finance them than to pay for hotels year after year. So we're trying to find innovative ways to deal with this. And of course, we've got $16 million out there for eviction prevention services. If somebody looks like they're going to lose their apartment, the place they're living, we can provide temporary short-term assistance. This is not a long-term assistance program. But keeping somebody from losing housing is really, really important. Once you lose housing, it's really destabilizing for the families. I can tell you, living in poverty is destabilizing for children because they know what they don't have and they know the tensions their parents are under. It is not a healthy environment for kids. But when you lose your housing and you're on the street with your kids, that's a really untenable situation. And then crowding them into a one-room motel room, it gets them out of the cold, but it's not a very humane way to do this. So we're looking for what we can do and do it. We're conscious that it costs money. We're conscious that people have a limited tolerance, apparently, for spending money. So we're trying to figure out what are the most cost-effective ways for us to do it. And in ways, this has been interesting because it also has brought us to look for solutions for some of our other housing problems. Next. Public safety. This is another important thing in Montgomery County. When we were going through the changes we've made in public safety, one of the things I tried to assure people, I was not a defund the police person. What I did say is we can fund the police and we can fund the social programs. This was not an either-or choice that we had to make. And, that we can talk about reducing police when we reduce crime and we have a more stable situation, but this is not the moment for us to be reducing the police, and we haven't done it. We've enhanced their pay. We were very conscious of where Montgomery County sat compared to other jurisdictions in the region. We brought our pay up so that it's competitive. We have really strong benefits, so we are an attractive place to be a police officer, and I think we've just done we got two things in the work. One we've completed. We had a college requirement for officers. So we were losing recruits to almost everybody around us because they could go anywhere without a college degree. And Montgomery County said you have to have 60 credits before you can be hired as a police officer. If you think about it, if you were a young person saying, I want to be a police officer and you don't have a degree, that means you got to deal with at least 2 years of school, assuming you can afford to go full time. And if you're on your own, it's probably 4 years of school part-time. You're not going to delay becoming a police officer for 2 to 4 years. You're going to go to somebody who will hire you now. My department, to their great credit, worked out a deal with the University of Maryland Global Campus. The Global Campus went and came in and evaluated our police training. And they're giving our police graduates now a full 60 credits for getting that degree, for doing the training, which means they don't have to go back and get a college degree. They're offering the families of officers who take this program, come into our department, access to the global campus for no tuition as another benefit. So we're going to be able to offer young people wanting to go into policing a 2-year degree just by becoming a police officer, which nobody else is doing. And so we think this will make us a little bit more competitive again. The other thing we're lobbying for, most people want to do it, but we have this very conservative board of sheriffs, I think, at the state level, who will not change the rules on marijuana use. So whereas you can go to Fairfax County having smoked marijuana last year, you cannot do that in the state of Maryland. So if you say you smoke marijuana, you can't be hired as a police officer. So again, they'll go to every jurisdiction around us, except other jurisdictions in Maryland who have the same restriction we do. So we are working with the governor and with people in the legislature to get this out of there. If it's legal and people are using it, it is no worse than alcohol. And you need to, you should have laws about use in public, use when you're on your job. But the idea that you can't get a job if you smoked marijuana in the last 3 years is just, it's killing us. So those two things we think are going to really help us with police recruitment. It's a big deal. We're increasing our EMS resources. One of the things we've done over the last 5 years is add chase cars to the way we do our public health response, because for years our entire public safety system was built around stations, police stations and fire stations. And over time, we've discovered that most of the calls we run are healthcare calls, not fire calls. Something like over 80% of our calls are for healthcare, not for a fire. So using a station-based system really limits our ability to get people where we need them. So we're putting chase cars out in the community. It doesn't mean they're chasing people, but it means they're located remotely, and they can be in different parts of the county. They can be in a part of the county where at a certain time of day you have more calls than normal, more than your local stations could handle. And so we can move these vehicles around to be where we need them without having to build extra fire stations. And that's really important to me. We've been able to increase our cadet program. These are young people who are looking at, want to be police officers. We had a cadet program. Now we're letting 25 kids into the program, and they're going to tailor this with something at the back end to keep them tied into the police force. They're too young to become police officers, but we want to keep them tied into the department so they can find jobs there. There's certainly non-police things they could do that could help us, and then that would set them up for coming into the department. We think if we get them through that stage, they're likely to be people who want to come into our own police department. We've got a violent crime and information center with real-time intelligence, so we've set that up, which is, helps our police department be more effective. My favorite program is the drone program, which we have 4 drones active in Montgomery County, and it's been a real blessing for the department because the drone can get to the scene of a crime faster than a police officer usually can. And so we have them in Bethesda and Gaithersburg, Germantown, and in downtown Silver Spring, and I'm thinking what the last one is, Wheaton. And so the drones are able to get airborne, arrive at a scene. They can be there sometimes while a crime's in process. They can follow the person from above. We've had them follow somebody onto a bus, tell the police that they're on a bus, and the police know where the bus is going, and the police greet them at a bus stop. And so it is a really good program. We're the largest jurisdiction in the country that's doing this. We're expanding it beyond 4 drones. And I've asked the department, because one of the things that we can't control, our officers don't do high-speed chases. So our guys will not go 100 miles an hour. I'm trying to see if we can get a couple of drones that can go 100 miles an hour and put them over 270 and put them over the Beltway so that our guys don't have to go chasing them, but a drone can stick with the car as long as they can. And then when the person parks, they can keep relaying information to the police so they can get there and deal with the person who was driving like crazy. And if you know the story of Officer Pat Kep, he lost both his legs to a driver who had repeatedly taunted the police, and he would pull up next to a police car and he would just take off flying, and the police were like, we can't chase him, and they wouldn't do it. And one time, in this case, Officer Kep had gotten ahead of the guy, and he was trying to put what they call stop strips out, strips that would blow the tires on a car and cause the car to stop. And the guy saw him doing that he swerved, he ran over the police officer. The officer lost both his legs in that process. We got legislation, thank Greg Wims. Greg, are you here? I don't see Greg tonight, but Greg was instrumental in getting that legislation through the state legislature, and it stiffened the crime or the penalties for people who are driving recklessly. And I'm a believer that if you're driving like that, you really ought to lose your car and you ought to lose your license, and your life should be a lot more difficult because it is just really dangerous. And so I'm glad we're doing that. We have mobile crisis teams now. And so when you get a call in and you know the call is not for somebody who's a violent criminal or somebody who's trying to rob somebody, but it's a homeless person who's having mental health issues, or just a regular person who's having mental health issues, that in both cases, we can send someone other than a police officer there. So we're not relying on a police officer to help. Police don't want to be doing that work. Mental health workers are the people who should be doing that work, and so we're shifting and adding more capacity to do that. Next. Transportation. I mentioned our zero fare policy on buses. We're building out, we've got plans in the budget for parts of the bus rapid transit line. This is important to us because, years ago, I think I was still on the council then, Washington Post had run a story about business leaders saying the biggest impediment to economic development was transportation. And Montgomery County ranks as actually one of the worst. We have a really great ride-on bus system because there's so many buses and it carries so many people. But it's a great system that's stuck in traffic. And a system that's stuck in traffic is not what you call choice riders will use. If you have a choice, if you could drive or you could take a bus, and if the bus ride is going to take you longer than your car, you're most likely going to pick your car. And so you need to get transportation speeds down so they're comparable to what a car trip is. You can't do that unless you give buses more dedicated lanes and the ability to move and give them signal priority so that when they come on a red signal, they can flip it green for the bus and the bus can keep going. This is all proven technology that lots of other people use. I actually designed the county's bus rapid transit system with my aide over a period of about a week or two back in 90, whenever I got elected, 2006, 2007. And it's actually in the county's master plan of highways. And we looked at all the origin destination pairs, which means where do people live and where are they going to work. The good thing about Montgomery County is there are so few major highways that it's really easy to map out how people travel to and from work. The bad thing about Montgomery County is there are too few highways and we don't have a grid system. So if you were in DC, New York, Los Angeles, where the roads are laid out as a grid, if the road you're on is congested, you can go one block over, make another turn, and you can travel parallel to the congested road. If you're in Montgomery County, this is my favorite, one of my favorite things, north-south roads in Montgomery County, University Boulevard from College Park as far as Wheaton, Connecticut Avenue from DC as far as Aspen Hill, Wisconsin Avenue forever, and Georgia Avenue forever, and 270. And that's the east-west, those are the north-south roads in the county. The east-west roads are even fewer. They're, let's see, Silver Spring East-West Highway, Randolph Road, Veers Mill from Wheaton to Rockville, which isn't much of a, when you consider the county, and a couple of things a little bit farther up that don't go very far. So we do not have the road system that's conducive to driving or to transit. So we need to figure out how we can build a system that actually can move people more efficiently. And we've got some federal money. We're in the line for money right now, which is good. We made a preliminary step forward, so we're hoping the feds keep us in the line there. And we've got some more money from the state legislature. But, I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but this county, because it will not tax developers, is getting itself killed. And I'm going to show you charts in a little bit to compare Montgomery County taxes to the taxes in Northern Virginia. So before anybody says to me, why can't we be like Virginia? I'm going to show you why we're not like Virginia. So hold your breath in anticipation of that. We've got a right-on bus fleet that is as large as almost all the other bus fleets in the DC area, except WMATA. It is almost as large as everything put together. Not quite, but almost. And that says a lot about the size of our fleet. We've got electric buses. We've constructed microgrids so we can keep these buses charged, and they're separated from power outages from PEPCO. We actually have hydrogen fueling infrastructure, and we got it the easy way. The federal government, back when it cared, gave the county, I think it was a $14 million grant, and so we have a machine that can take natural gas and convert it to hydrogen, and so we can use the hydrogen for our hydrogen buses. The good thing about hydrogen buses, they have longer range right now than battery buses do. So for a lot of long routes, a lot of jurisdictions have to have two buses. With a hydrogen bus, you can do the whole route with a single bus. That's an important in terms of controlling the costs of this. So we're trying to put this thing into place. We launched the Great Seneca Transit Network, so you can go from Shady Grove, and you now got 3 different routes into the Life Sciences Center and the communities around Shady Grove that have a lot of the jobs in Montgomery County. We're looking at evaluating our traffic signals, and this is a budget issue. The county could go to a better automated traffic signal system. Our system is primitive. It is not flexible. It doesn't adjust to the real world. I mean, I can come up with a million things that are wrong with it. You have sensors in some systems that could let a car that stopped at a red light for 5 minutes, let them go because it knows there's no car coming in either direction for any distance that's likely to endanger that driver. So there's a lot more you can do with signal timing, and we just need to get enough money into the budget that we can actually build out a system properly. But the technology's out there. We just have to get it into the system. We did launch our first express bus service in Shady Grove, though, so that's I think a real plus for us. But transportation is important, and it's what separates us from Northern Virginia. Next slide. So, public schools, big part of our budget. They are half of what we spend, actually a little bit more than half of what we spend. This chart shows you what's happened to spending on public schools in Montgomery County since 2012. I could have gone back farther, but 2012, the top dotted line, the black dotted line, shows you the adjusted peak of all spending, county and state spending for schools. And that's in 2010, and we peaked at about 23,500 a student. The one below it is the inflation-adjusted peak for county money, and we peaked at $16,800. So here we are, 2010 to now, 15 years later. We are $2,000 below where we should be for adjusted total spending, and we are $2,000 below where we should be for just the county share of spending. That's per pupil. And if you look at, you can see what we've been able to do in my administration. You can see how that line stays pretty flat when you get to the vertical line. Those are the years that I've been there, and you can see the school spending's increased significantly. We were not funding the schools properly. I will say the schools were not managing the schools properly and created a lot of problems. Last year's surprise was we need 700 counselors. And we were like, what? Counselors and workers for special education in the school. This thing had been building for years. But because they were afraid to ask for the money they needed for everything, they asked for some of the money they needed and let this fester. I think last year, probably the last 2 years, it came to a crisis because if you had kids in school, you probably noticed that a lot of kids were having problems with other kids in the classroom. A lot of the kids in the classroom were not getting the special ed assistance they should have had. I taught in a classroom. I know what it's like when children cannot control themselves, and it just doesn't impact that child's learning. It impacts everybody else's learning. So we've had a lot of issues from parents raised about this. The school system came back last year and said, this is what we need. We've got to fill these positions. We should have filled them 10 years ago, but we didn't. But last year we were able to cover most of the ground and most of those positions got filled. So now that they're up to staffing levels, the shift is going to be toward the condition of their buildings. Next. So some people ask me, why can't you do something about the MCPS budget? So what you need to know is we play no role in their budget. Nobody asks us anything. They make their budget in the fall, and it's done completely by the Board of Education and the meetings that they have. I can recommend how much money they can spend when I get to the spring, but I can't tell them what to spend. So if they have a program that I think is a bad program, I can't pull money out and say, I don't want to do that bad program, so we'll save money. If there's something that we think they should do, I can't put it into their budget. So they have sole control over their budget. And basically, I make a recommendation, then the county council either approves it, increase, or they can lower it. But we cannot tell them what programs to run. We should be appropriate by category, not by program. And we try to work with the Board of Education to get more money from the state, and some years were more successful than others. Last year, the state took about $20 million that was an employee benefit that the state was paying, and they just shifted that whole pile of money to Montgomery County. We didn't ask for it, we didn't want it, but this is another expense, so we had to find $20 million for a pension thing that we were not funding before. Montgomery College and Park and Planning and WSSC Water all follow the same process. And I don't know if everybody realized WSSC actually gets some regulatory oversight from the county, not a lot, but some. We have commissioners on the board there, and we approve their budget. So if you have any questions about these agencies or their funding practices or spending practices, please call them. But I cannot give you satisfactory answers, and I can't tell you, that we're going to promise to change things. Even with school construction, we don't have the ability to tell them what school to build when. You guys in Poolesville know this very well. I think you had the oldest school, and so congratulations on getting it finally, but that should have happened earlier than it happened. Next. So, go ahead. That's a boring slide. So this kind of lays out what my budget actually looks like, my operating budget looks like all told. So if you take that big blue stuff on the right-hand side, it may look purple to you. That big blue stuff and the little grayish blue thing at the bottom, that's MCPS and it's Montgomery College. Together, that's 54% of everything we spend. The next one is public safety, $809 million, and that is 18% of what we spend. I'm going to skip over the rest of the budget. Debt service is $438 million. That's how we pay for things. So all the schools that we built, everything, all the infrastructure we built, we float bonds for. The bonds generally have a 20-year life. Bonds equal debt, and this is what we pay off. I will say, in particular, we built a lot of this debt up when Ike was there, but it was the absolutely right thing to do because interest rates were like in the 2% area, so it was like getting money for free. The inflation on a project back then was greater than inflation. So if we had delayed building because we didn't want to pay interest, we would have wound up paying more for the building by the time we got around to building it. So when money's really cheap, borrowing's a pretty good idea. When money gets more expensive, borrowing causes other challenges. But we built a fair amount of schools back then. OPEB is one of the things that gives me heartburn, $206 million for OPEB and pensions. The county has funded pensions in the 95% range, kind of depends on the stock market. We've been as high as a little over 100%. When the market goes down, we drop into the 90s. Right now, we're like in the mid-90s. But OPEB, which is employee health benefits, is one of the things that I've been targeting for reform. So all of you here, I assume all of you are taxpayers, you pay out of your taxes every year for this year's retiree health benefits. So all the retirees who get health benefits get a check or get money from us, or we pay for their program to pay for their health benefits. Some years ago, they decided that they would have the current residents pay so that 15 to 20 years in the future residents wouldn't have to pay for then current retiree expenses. The idea was to build up billions of dollars in a fund doing nothing for you all in the real time so that somebody in the future would not have to spend $100 million on employee benefits. Whereas the year before that magical moment happens, they spent $100 million. And I thought this was one of the stupidest things we ever did. And it ties up a lot of money. And it really kind of paralyzes our ability to do things. And my view is if you've got limited resources, people in the future can pay just like we pay. In the meantime, the money we have ought to be targeted on meeting the needs that we have. And this is literally robbing us of a couple of tens of millions of dollars. And so I'm not in a position where I want to continue that. We'll probably recommend another set of changes to the council to try to bring down a little bit of what we're spending so we can take some of what we save and apply it to current year expenses, which would free up money to do other things so I don't have to rely so much on taxes to do other things. The pay-go thing at the top of this chart is we put cash into the budget for what we spend on construction and bonds. So we show the rating agencies, we throw cash in there. So the one I didn't mention is the rest of the budget, and I left it out because I just want you to understand everything else we do, everything that isn't public safety or schools is in that $587 million, smallest part of this budget. And that includes all the libraries in Montgomery County. It includes all the parks in Montgomery County. It includes all the recreation centers. It includes all the school health nurses. It includes the bus drivers and the equipment and everything it takes to run and maintain things in Montgomery County. So everything else you see in this county, this center, is all coming out of the rest of the budget, which is why we try to tell people I don't have a lot of flexibility. If I want to free up space, since we're not cutting public safety, we're not defaulting on our debt service, we're not going to cut the capital we have to spend, we're not going to cut MCPS, So our choices are, and this happened, during COVID, it happened during the Great Recession. You cut your parks, you cut your recreation, you cut back on bus services, and you cut the things that make living here a little bit nicer and things that people actually really want to have in the midst of, everything else they do in life. If government's just reduced to, basic minimum and you don't get any pleasure out of this and we don't do things that make things enjoyable around here, I don't think we're doing our job the way we're supposed to do our job. But I just want you to get an idea that if you want me to shift money around, this is where the money is going to come from. And you figure circuit courts are also probably off target. We're not going to do that. So you really get into some really painful decisions when you're having to make money. And I know this, my first year in office, the second day in office, my staff came down and said, you've got a problem. Our budget is $50 million short for the year that was going to end in June. I came in December. So I had to make $50 million in cuts. And that was going line by line through budgets for days trying to figure out, how do I nick $50 million out of all these programs without killing programs? And that was one of my least favorite exercises. And I got to re-experience it because by the time we got to March, the state said our projections for next year are wrong, and you have to write down another $30 million. So my first experience was, how do you take stuff out of a budget that you really don't want to take out of a budget? And that's what we did. So we've managed to avoid that. The county's target for the budget is that we achieve 10% reserves. And when I came into office, the county had never achieved 10% reserves. We've been over 10% of reserves after the first year. One year we finished at 17.3. Last year we were about 13. Despite the fact that some people think I'm a tax and spend liberal, as money came in, we did not find ways to spend it because we felt we don't know what's going to happen next year. It's good to have this money because it's in reserve, and if we don't spend it, and if there's some project that's a one-time project, you can actually do that project because you've got the money and you don't need tax dollars to go after to do it. So we've stayed pretty conservative on our budgeting and pretty conservative on our spending, and I think it's really served the county pretty well to give us flexibility that otherwise we wouldn't have. Flexibility we're not sure we're going to have next year. So our operating challenges, pretty clear. More people need help. When we talk to folks who are doing the food programs out there, they tell us the lines are longer than they were during COVID. So COVID kind of unveiled what was in Montgomery County, made it very visible, and it hasn't gone away. Schools are just flat out going to cost more. If the teachers get their next pay increase, we'll increase the budget by about $100 million for 20,000 people. We have less flexibility in the budget. More and more goes to things that are high priority and you're not going to cut. It gives us more constraints. Inflation and constrained resources are a problem. Fortunately, inflation seems like it's slowing down, but it's not completely slowed down. We've recommended tax increases before. Last year we tried tax increases where we would have buffered most of the residents in the county from a tax increase. We had a property tax bill that would have meant if your property was worth $500,000 or less, you would have had no tax increase or you would have had a small cut. There are some people who, the council didn't like that approach, and we had an income tax approach that was the same thing. We were going to raise the income tax, and then we were going to give credits to offset some of the impact of raising the income tax. We've got to figure out a way to get more revenue, which is going to come back to what I'm going to talk about in transportation. We have a very uncertain job market. The Montgomery County jobs have not grown since about 2010. We've been flat since the Great Recession, and part of that is a growth issue. Companies have to want to come here. When you have a not good transportation system and you're looking at what Northern Virginia's been able to do, you don't compete against Northern Virginia very well. We have an uncertain job market right now because with all these federal employees losing jobs and all the people who worked for federal agencies or were in nonprofits that serve federal agencies, USAID wiped out more than the federal workers. It wiped out hundreds of jobs in Montgomery County in people who are working for agencies supported USAID. So imagine what's coming over the next few months. There will be more of that. Federal and state funding is going to change. The state's not in good financial health, so we're very concerned about what's going to happen at that level. We don't know whether we're going to see big changes or not, and we are going to see some big revenue swings because Maryland's tax code embeds the federal tax code, and so some of the things that are going to make it so billionaires don't have to pay so much money because, you know, their lives are tough. Those impacts are going to wind up trickling down into Montgomery County's budget. And so we're going to have to figure out how we replace those revenues. I mean, I'll be blunt about this. If, you know, President Trump has made a big deal out of shifting costs from the federal government to the state and local governments. So I feel pretty safe about looking at the very, very high income folks and saying, you got a break because we're not paying for this at the federal level. But if I have inherited the job of doing all the things the federal government was going to do, I'm going to go back and tax those same people and take some of what they got from the federal government and bring it back, because it's not fair for them to escape at the federal level and then have it compounded by what it's going to do to the revenues in the state of Maryland. And if we're not willing to deal with that, we're in real trouble. So I'm hoping the state looks at this. And go on to the next one. So this is what we're looking at. Unemployment in Montgomery County fell 9,600 jobs, July over July, this year to last year. 56,000 county residents are employed by the government. 13,000 Maryland federal jobs were lost since January 25. October 1st, we expect to see the impacts I've talked to you about. Federal spending reductions, $33 billion in federal spending is at risk, not for Montgomery County, but just in general for the state of Maryland and others. Possible relocation of federal agencies. That would take job cuts and put it on steroids because the jobs would disappear. There are more costs being shifted to us. You know, the federal government's not doing FEMA. There was a big flood in Western Maryland, and they got no money from FEMA. The floods in Asheville and, you know, the terrible storms they had, no money from FEMA. All that stuff's getting dumped on the states. And deportations are going to affect the communities and businesses. And this gives you an idea of, you know, our infrastructure needs. We were at $300 million in FY09. If it had only gone up by inflation, we'd be about $570 million now to build what we built in 2009. Instead of keeping up from inflation, you can see the gray line, we're actually falling behind on inflation. So we were almost $300 million below where we should be if we expect to build the same things we were building before. And this is not good. It is not responsible to have budgets that don't account for inflation. And we've got to figure out a way to tackle this, because we're just going to fall farther and farther behind or not be able to do some of the things we should be able to do. This gives you an idea. Inflation's a real thing. Ride-on buses, 467 to 1.2 million. New schools, 361 a square foot to 834 a square foot. Fire engines, 685,000 to 1.2 million. And road paving, 390,000 a mile to 519,000 a mile. These are things we have no control over. That's just inflation. So, you know, we're looking at what we can do to do tax restructuring in Montgomery County. The system was designed in the 50s and 60s. We were a suburban neighborhood. Montgomery County was never meant to be a city. DC was the city, Montgomery County is the suburb. Now we think, okay, Bethesda's the downtown, and then the rest of Montgomery County is the suburb. But we were the true suburb of the district. The subway line, the reason that Metro doesn't really serve Montgomery County, it was because it was designed, and I'll say this, it was designed to take white people who fled DC after 1960 and ferry them into jobs in the district and bring them back out to the suburbs again. In 1960, when people were leaving DC and looked at Silver Spring, they were greeted by real estate agents who reminded them that Montgomery County is still segregated and you don't have to worry about integration over here. By 1967, the council then eliminated the ability to enforce racial covenants. Almost all property in Montgomery County had racial covenants on two groups of people, blacks and Jews. You couldn't buy or rent if you were black or if you were Jewish. In some neighborhoods, they threw in Catholics. But that's the kind of place we were in 1960. You wouldn't think of that when you think about Montgomery County today. We've gone from, in 1970, 95% white, 4.5% black, 0.5 everybody else. Today, you're 16% Asian. They didn't exist as a number. You're 21% black, big increase in growth, 22% Hispanic, and 40-something% white. And that's the county we are in. Very different than we were in 1960 and 1970. And I will say this county handled integration much better than most communities did. We handled it much better than Prince George's County did, where it was a major war for years. That didn't happen in Montgomery County, and I think that led to kind of a more peaceful and accepting community where they weren't constantly at war with who's going to be my neighbor next year. So I think Montgomery County did a lot of things right, and I think it's made it easier for us to go forward and do some things that are right. But today, unlike then, the county's fully developed. You know, we should have built a grid of roads. We didn't do it. You can't go back and reinvent that. But we need investments, and we need modern investments. If the red line is never going to serve the county for economic development. I live in Tacoma Park. It goes to Glenmont, Wheaton, and Forest Glen and Silver Spring. There are no major jobs anywhere in that quarter. There are some jobs in Silver Spring. There's a little bit of jobs in Wheaton. I'm talking about non-retail, non-service jobs. These are not prime job corridors, and so this is not going to drive, people to these corridors. And the other corridor is 355 corridor. And that's where most of the jobs are. It is truly the job richness of Montgomery County is in the 355 I-270 corridor. And we need to be able to make sure we can connect people from where they live to where they work. And that's the challenge in building a transportation system. So let's go look at my model, Northern Virginia. So this is a chart of Montgomery County, and let's see, Montgomery's first, Frederick, Fairfax County. They left out my favorite slide, note to the folks there. Howard County, Prince George's County, Reston, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. So first thing I want to point out is Washington, D.C., lowest residential tax rate in the region, 85 cents. Montgomery County is actually $1.04, I think, but at 85 cents. But commercial property, if you have a building worth $10 million or more in the District of Columbia, you are paying $1.89. If your building's worth between $5 million and $10 million, you're paying $1.77. If your building is worth up to $5 million, you're paying $1.65 or $1.66. In Reston, Virginia, if you're residential, you're paying $1.36. If you're commercial, you're paying $1.48. If you go to Prince George's County, you're paying $1.37 for both. If you go to Howard County, you're paying $1.33 for both, residential and commercial. If you go to Fairfax, you're paying $1.15, almost $16 on residential. You're paying $1.28 on commercial. If you're in Tyson's Corner, add 26 cents to that, and you're paying $1.54. So when someone says, "Oh, these businesses are running to Northern Virginia and Fairfax County for taxes," they're not going there to pay 30 to 50 cents more than Montgomery County. It's because they built infrastructure. In 2012, the developers and the council got the Virginia legislature, which was controlled by Republicans with the Republican governor, to give the local jurisdictions taxing authority on commercial property. And the money had to be used for infrastructure, transportation. So the developers were comforted because they knew their money wouldn't pay for schools or feeding people or, housing the homeless or anything else like that. It would only be for infrastructure. So they signed on to these taxes in Northern Virginia, and that's how Northern Virginia eats our lunch. They have one taxing authority that covers the 3 or 4 counties in Northern Virginia that provides them $500 million a year in bond revenues. Arlington County or Alexandria, they build this new Potomac Yards metro station. $250 million bond for a transportation project. I couldn't float a $250 billion bond in Montgomery County. And what makes it outrageous, their budget is $800 million. My budget is over $7 billion. But because of the way we've structured our taxes here, we can't match them. And this is important to you because the more you do this, the smaller that other number becomes. And DC is the poster child for why that's true. Everybody else is getting more money out of commercial property. And when somebody says to you, oh, if you raise your taxes, you go up to $1.06, I'm going to go to Frederick County. Really? Because Frederick's going to tax you at $1.11. And if you want to go to Howard County, they're going to tax you at $1.33. So it's not like we're the high tax place in the region. We are actually, outside of DC, the lowest tax place in the region. And on commercial property, when you add in all these taxes, it negates the fact that Virginia has lower corporate income tax. DC did a study, and we took the study pretty seriously, and we shared it with the governor. If you look at only the state's taxes, Virginia kills Maryland by about 2%. If you look at all the taxes that Virginia offloaded on local jurisdictions, like all these transportation taxes, you add all them back into the equation, and it's more expensive to do business in Northern Virginia than it is here. So you got to look at the whole tax package, and that's something we've been trying to bring to people's attention. In my opinion, we're getting taken to the cleaners. There's no reason for us not to be more comfortable with raising the commercial property taxes. We're not building a major subway system. We don't have to come anywhere near what they've done in Northern Virginia, but we need to come close enough. It's in terms of state rankings, Virginia ranks number 3 in transportation nationally. Maryland ranks 37th. 37th. So if you don't invest in infrastructure, you pay for it. You pay for it by people saying you're not a serious place to come to. You can't move people. We're going to go to some place that can move people. So Virginia's not winning the war because of taxes. They're winning the war because they tax, they invest in infrastructure, and they do what I would like to do is they believe, and you can see it in their tax revenues, but by growing businesses, they've been able to grow their tax base. And so making the investments to make businesses want to go there has been the thing to do. Montgomery County's approach has been to lower taxes on businesses and lower them again and lower them again. We have impact taxes on development that offset the cost of roads and schools, and the council over the years, including when I was on the council, lowered them and lowered them and lowered them. And every time you lower the tax on the private sector, you raise the tax on you. That's just the way it is. There's no way this game adds up. It's a zero-sum game. If we're going to build things and do things, money comes from one or two places. And if you reduce what one person pays, if you want the same things, you're going to pay more. And so that's, to me, this is important. I think Montgomery County, there's no reason we can't match ourselves up against Fairfax. But if we're not going to raise the money to make the investments, we're not going to be like Fairfax. So if you want a Fairfax County here, or you want at least the jobs they have, you're going to have to think about we want the taxes they have too, because if you don't, you're not going to get the one without the other. And next. So questions? I think hopefully I've given you some things to think about.
Okay, so we are going to form two lines in the aisles here, and we're going to try to limit questions to no more than a minute so we can give everybody a fair chance to ask a question. And if there's anybody that has any disabilities that needs help, please raise your hand and we'll make sure that we get to you. So we'll go ahead and start here.
All right, thank you. County Executive Elrich, you've spoken many times about the importance of the master planning process. The County Council is regularly taking actions that would undermine or undo master plan recommendations around the county, and you've been a champion for maintaining the sanctity of master plans. In your own words, quote, "It is the master plan process that affords an opportunity for residents to weigh in and for careful review of impacts on neighborhoods and infrastructure," end quote. This summer, despite the fact that the master plan closure of West Bard Avenue has been endorsed by the County Council in 2016, when the West Bard Sector Plan was passed, you voted for that yourself as a council member at the time, approved by the Planning Board after a public hearing in 2023, approved by Montgomery County Fire and Rescue, approved by Montgomery County Department of Transportation after a second public hearing in 2023, and then in 2025, you yourself endorsed the West Bard Road closure. And despite all that, MCDOT Director Chris Conklin wrote a letter to the County Council this past June encouraging them to reconsider this part of the 2016 West Bard Master Plan. With due respect, we feel it is outrageous for MCDOT to be soliciting the County Council to reopen a master plan like this. The master plan process, as you pointed out, is comprehensive for good reason. My question to you is, will you please tell MCDOT Director Conklin to respect the West Bard Master Plan and implement this road closure, which every branch of the county government has approved?
We're going to make the same recommendation. I think the council has a hearing coming up on that, and we're going to make the same recommendation to close it.
MCDOT has said that the county council does not have the authority to implement this closure.
I asked, Marilyn, do you know if you got scheduled? Yeah. So I was told it was supposed to go to the council for a hearing, but I've already told my people that we're supporting it.
I guess I don't understand if the executive branch is supporting it and the legislative branch doesn't even have the authority to do it. Why is it going to the council at all?
I will have to ask him why he thinks it's going over there. But I've told them that we're going to support closing it.
Got a couple people.
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Susan Mark, and the budget is a moral document. It reflects our values. And I know that very painfully because I work for the Federal Health and Human Services and seen what our president has done. But as you know, I'm also against the funding that we give to the Maryland Israel Development Center, which brings in weapons contractors. This past month, after you gave them money, they brought in a surveillance company, an Israeli surveillance company called Arif Labs, that scrapes social media, and they want to sell it to Homeland Security. So I know we've tried to play the angle that the genocide is bad and we don't want to be complicit and fund that. But now they're bringing in companies that are going to harm us, and we are going to be the county that was the launch pad for this. So I'm asking you to stop funding that.
Okay.
So first and foremost, I just wanted to thank you all for being here and thank County Executive Elrich for your support of Montgomery College. I just wanted to share my story real quick that I'm not a traditional student. My pathway for secondary education has been anything but conventional. I've faced numerous setbacks, specifically health setbacks, throughout my journey, and the first of which started when I was 12. Throughout my journey, I've also faced financial struggles and had to work full-time in order to support myself and go through college. I was first exposed to MC through their partnership with MCPS high schools, the dual enrollment program, and this partnership has only grown since I've been in high school. I chose MC because the tuition's been very affordable and the support they offer to students is incredible. Particularly, they offer a ton of support services like the science learning centers, scholarship opportunities, and many other things that I've benefited from. But I just wanted to share my story because it's a testament to MC's success and Montgomery County's success with education. Without MC, I don't think I ever would have returned to college with all my setbacks. I never would have earned and graduated with an associate's degree this spring, and I never would have had the dreams to continue on and pursue a career in nursing, so I'm going to get my bachelor's degree. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate your support of Montgomery College and including us in the budget. Thank you.
In case everybody doesn't know, Montgomery College, like #1 community college in the state of Maryland, #8 in the country. You can get as good as a college education there. It is really a wonderful educational institution, and we're expanding it to the East County. I know it's a long way from you over here, but the East County was a desert for some of these things, and they're getting a campus over there as well.
How are you doing? So it's definitely known that Montgomery County overall is a very safe county to live in. That being said, there is definitely an issue with at-risk kids who are going in and out of juvie. And really are in need of more support than what is currently being offered. And I wanted just to bring it to the attention that Empowerment Behavioral Therapeutic Services currently has contracts started being written for PG County as well as Baltimore County for an after-school and summer program, very thorough program, combining both mental health care as well as recreational activities that have been very successful in other areas, and would love to see that being considered in Montgomery County as well.
So we've run, for example, we had a summer program for youth to keep them engaged this summer, and we work with a number of different institutions. We need a lot of things in the county of mental health. We're working with the state. They finally agreed to give us a residential facility that probably has about 20 beds in it, and we've asked for this for 2 years. The new secretary has said that this is something they're going to work on and get us, and it's something we think we can put up pretty soon. We need more bed space in Montgomery County. We're going to continue to run summer programs for youth because it really is important. We also have talked to the state because their criminal justice policies, I get not wanting to put kids in jail. I don't want to put kids in jail. I do not want to give people criminal records. It is hard enough growing up in poverty to just overcome everything else, and you tack on a criminal record. If people don't feel that they're ever going to get a job once they've got a criminal record, kind of foreclose the paths that we prefer people to take. So I've been pushing the state to actually consider much more support and facilities for youth who are, in trouble. That it doesn't make sense to just release them and then arrest them again the next day. So we've got to figure out a better way to handle this, and the state's got to play and roll with it. But I appreciate your concern for it because it concerns a lot of us. It's just not fair to leave these kids without supports.
One more thing is, it sounded like you're speaking more in favor of institutional ways to do it, whereas integrating kids with their families with the proper mental health structure can actually make a much bigger difference in the long run, and whereas filling beds is often pulling kids away from their family, from the environments that they are going to be in regardless, and it has quite a counterproductive issue, whereas, again, the program I'm speaking of unites things much more, and would like to be able to talk to you more about that.
I would just, as in general, I prefer to deal with it as not an institutional thing. When I was growing up, Montgomery County had a system of community mental health clinics. I know because my parents made me go to one. So that was, we had that system, we had that infrastructure in the county. We don't have that infrastructure now. So I'd like to try to get that infrastructure back and figure out what the cost is. We've talked to Shepherd Pratt about extending some of their programs, but there are some cases, and as hard as it might be to want to deal with it, there are places where the parents say, I can't manage my kid. My kid is not going to listen to me. No matter what I say, they go out and do it. I know you've heard about some of the parents whose kids are doing things like we're constantly going out and taking cars, and they would get arrested, and they come back, and the parents say, I can't control them. Then they'd be out taking another car in a couple of days. At some point, some people need more support than you're going to get in the household where the parents don't feel that they can enforce or they can't take care of the kid. I don't like it, but they need help, and just abandoning them to whatever they do is just going to lead them to more trouble.
Okay, I think that we have a question from online.
NCPS, Rachel Fitzpatrick, one of our virtual attendees, says, I would love to hear how the master schools will be supported. They have been in desperate need of repair, renovations for many years, Given the reports put out by the CPS office, that issues are now public that were not then in place for updates. The latest market study also shows capacity changes, but no timeline for updates to the ordinance. And there is another MCPS-related question.
Can I do that one first?
Okay, go ahead.
So, because as I tried to point out before, we don't control the MCPS budget. If they don't put a school in, we don't even have the opportunity to fund the school. So your pressure points have got to be in making sure that the school board members put Damascus in there. I've heard about Damascus from some other parents I just happened to talk to the other day, and it sounds like it's a problem. But the school system has to get it into the budget so we can fund it.
And the other question comes from Joanna Wilsner. She's a Damascus Cluster Coordinator, also related to the schools. I'd love to hear what the plan is to support Damascus schools to ensure our facilities are safe, updated to modern standards, expanded for capacity growth, and provide equitable learning environments compared to our county peers. Very similar.
Same answer, get the school system to put in the budget that makes the school what it should be, and we'll fund it.
And let me go ahead and ask this one regarding people with disabilities. This comes from Rachel B. I'm curious to hear about plans on making our communities for people with disabilities more accessible.
We've funded, and we have legislation that requires greater accessibility for housing construction, and that's one thing we've done positively. And we continue to work with groups that help people equip their homes with safety devices or, devices to help people with disabilities manage being able to stay in the house. That's been one of, not just my priorities, but priority for other people is to make sure seniors can age in place. But if they don't have support for maintaining the house and doing things that would be challenging for them, it's a difficult thing to do. So we're looking at different ways to be supportive of that.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. We'll take more questions from the live audience.
Hi, Mark. We have two capital budget issues here. I know they're not really for tonight, so I wanted to raise three operating budget issues. One is that WUMCO, as you know, our local charitable service organization, has been doing a great job on healthcare and dental services, and they have a $250,000 grant that's been in the operating budget for the last couple of years, and we'd like to make sure that continues. They still need that money to keep operating these services. Secondly, our seniors group, as you know, has been doing an incredible job of offering a lot of services that we can't get because we don't have a community center right now. They offer about 600 programs every year, and their grant, as you know, was cut a couple of years ago by the Office of Grants Management. You helped, I think, tie over a little bit for them, but they still need a $50,000 a year grant, and we'd like to make sure that gets in the budget somehow. And third, I just mentioned the operating budget in terms of supporting seniors programs because we don't have a community center. But we've also proposed to ride on a series of reforms that we think could really help get public bus service out to our area in a way that's manageable and will get these seniors down to both doctors and to services they need. I can share with you the write-on proposal we made, but so far they have not committed to fund it. At the best, it might be 5 years out if we get that funding, but it really would help a lot to get the seniors to where they need to go to get services and also get to doctors.
So share that with me.
Yeah.
And I can take a look at it. And I can't make any, like I said, I've told you before, I can't make any promises on operating because I have no idea what my revenues are going to be.
Right.
If revenues are good.
No, I understand what you're saying. No, I understand that.
We ended the year really well. We were like 70 something over what we thought we were going to be, which is good. But we don't know where that's going to continue, and we don't know whether we're going to need that. I mean, we've avoided the temptation of jumping on some, near and dear projects because I don't want to spend all that money and discover we could use it 6 months from now.
Right.
Stay tuned.
Hello, Mr. Elridge. My name is Mark Stunder. I'm a Seneca Valley Cluster Coordinator. I'm responsible for 7 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and Seneca Valley High School in coordination with MCC PTA. I did not know my colleagues from Damascus were going to ask the question about the boundary study, but I'm going to ask you this, and I believe this is in your lane. One of the big problems we have in the Up County is coming up with the boundary study, which is Damascus High School. That's going to influence a lot in terms of what will happen to schools up here, what options they have. I know that's not in your lane, but
Right.
what is in your lane is the CIP funding for Damascus High School. So the question I have for you is, are you planning to put CIP funding for Damascus High School into the new CIP?
So-
It's been taken out before, and is it going back? Because your decision will then will have a big domino effect as to what will happen in the Up County. And I have a follow-up.
The school system's going to have to make the decision to, I don't take I would leave it in there. We put all the other schools in there they recommended. We did, the 2 high schools being built now. I would have no problem supporting the renovation. The council has to determine do we have enough money.
Whether they're going to keep the money, but you are going to support,
I will
you're going on record to support Damascus High School annex building.
Yeah,
So if the county council approves, then it will happen.
yeah. Is it in the school budget, though?
It's not, the CIP is
So
not.
they've got to put it in the
CIP
budget.
has not been released yet. Second question, I had the chance to attend a couple of school board briefings on the initial CIP, what they're thinking about in terms of HVAC
Yep.
and in terms of roofing. And you mentioned in your opening remarks, that's a major concern of yours, down county, up county, the whole county has
Right.
problems with HVAC. Up here, we have problems at MLK Middle School and a bunch of other schools. So my question is, they're actually asking for $745 million. There's no way you're going to be able to fund that.
Thank you for saying that.
No, I mean, let's be realistic. $175 million for roofs, $745 million for HVAC over a course of years. You're not going to be able to fund that. Do we have your commitment in the Up County, and actually for the county, to increase funding? And I know you can't target it to HVAC, but at least to increase school maintenance funding, big time.
So, like I said, I'm going to send over to the council a budget that probably has $340 million in there for bonds. That'd be $60 million a year, and it's a 6-year CIP, so it'd be $360 million. I think we can squeeze some things in that we weren't able to do right now. I mean, there's a lot of things out there that's, that schools aren't the only thing we would put money to, and I don't know what well, 745 would eat up all that pretty quick, would actually be twice that. We're going to, hopefully the state at some point kicks more money into what we do for capital projects, but the state's more limited than it's been in the past. So, I'll drive this as far as I can drive it, and I'll try to drive the revenues to support it.
So what I'm hearing is you would support an
Yeah.
increase, a substantial increase for Montgomery County school maintenance.
Within our ability to make this work.
County Executive, good evening. I'm here on behalf of the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board, and when we advocate for funding for rec, we find that council members are almost apologetic because, as you alluded to, rec took a disproportionate share of cuts during the Great Recession. And when you look at the numbers, and as council members have said at committee hearings, rec wasn't restored in the way other agencies were in the years after. One example we see this is with maintenance, with PLAR. Planned life cycle asset replacement, which is somehow still at 2008 levels, which is hard to believe with all the demand for rec in these facilities, including during the pandemic. I was just at Upper County on my way here over in Emery Grove. It's a great facility. It was bustling, kids playing basketball, pool players, pickleball players, but the building is firmly stuck in the last century. To expand the weight room, they essentially cut a hole in the wall, which is definitely not ADA compliant. They basically have one common room, so they have to constantly move around tables and chairs just to have meetings. They don't really have a conference room for meetings, as a lot of centers do. They had to do mold remediation. This is the wall, sir, of the building facing the street, and they can't even get it power washed. And that's one of my questions. Who do I talk to about getting it power washed? I'll be happy to do it myself if I can, but...
Is it a park and planning building or a county building? If it's my building, it's our power washing, and if it's the park and planning, it's their power washing.
Got it. But could you just, recreation, we just want to see maintenance especially. We don't want to see maintenance deferred. We don't want to see these PLAR levels stay where they are. We would just love, we appreciate the council being apologetic at the end of the process, but this year we're trying to move this conversation at the beginning because, as you know, and as the different challenges folks have spoken to tonight, REC does such a great job And, these buildings are well-loved, they're well-used, but they're just not funded at the level that we need them to. So
Yep.
I hope you'll consider that.
No, I will. And this is the point of doing this now, because if I did this later, I would already make my budget. So I'll make sure the people who are here tonight take note of that and see what we can do on the PLAR. But I will say, the libraries also didn't come back till, I was putting stuff back in the libraries, and that was, 10 years after when things got taken out. So it's taken a long time to build the budget back up. And you can see the school system has never been built back up from the recession.
Hi, my name is Layla. I missed your meeting in Bethesda, came up here, I'm a Bethesda resident, so that I could speak to you and ask you about something that I find incredibly serious. I am asking for you to stop funding the Maryland Israel Development Center. And this is a very serious issue. Recently, Senator Van Hollen released a report, and the title of his report is, quote, "The Netanyahu government is implementing a plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza of Palestinians. America is complicit. The world must stop it," end quote. Both Senator Van Hollen and Senator Also Brooks have, along with many other Senate Democrats, voted for joint resolutions providing congressional disapproval of proposed weapons sales to Israel. Congressman Jamie Raskin, whose district encompasses Montgomery County, has repeatedly voted against measures in the House for weapons sales to Israel and is currently a co-sponsor for the Block the Bombs Act, which opposes giving more weapons to Israel. So my question to you is, why are you working in opposition to our federal representatives who are trying so hard to do the necessary work to stop funding weapons for Israel, and instead you're using our county taxpayer money to fund Israeli weapons manufacturers? And when we brought up a question earlier about the seriousness of the MDIC in our county, you were very dismissive about it. And this is actually a very serious issue.
So this money does not go to the weapons manufacturers, and it does not go to the companies. It goes to a recruiting firm. We're going to try to address some of this stuff so that, as far as what's happening in Israel, I probably agree with what you have to say. I am not happy. I think it's wrong. It is about as disproportionate as you could possibly be. So I'm not sympathetic to what Netanyahu is doing. I just think it's reprehensible. But we're not funding the weapons manufacturers. But I hear what you're saying about this money's not even going as an incentive to them. They don't get this money.
So could you then explain how
it goes to a company, the MIDC does recruitment. Most of what we've gotten from MIDC are things that I like, healthcare related, drug development, medical tech, and other tech that's non-military tech. Those are the things that, that I think are positive, and that, I don't have a qualm about getting those resources. So, like I said, I'm talking with people and trying to figure out a way to deal with this.
I would like to stay in communication, get public updates on what's going on with that funding.
When we tell you what we're doing, I'll let you know.
Thank you. Mr. County Executive, it is 8:52.
Mr. Executive Pablo Aguilar, I am representing the neighbors of Shermantown. So based on what's going on in DC, we have seen an increase of homeless population in the area. This is bringing public alcoholic consumption, public fighting, petty drug selling, and also many other things. And as neighbors, we are seeing a deterioration of our neighborhood. The police has been involved several times here. And basically, because of our beliefs and our values, we concur with the position of not leaving one behind. But at the same time, when this is brought to your neighborhood and you start seeing danger towards your kids, your children, you start seeing it in a different manner. So my question to you is, how are you approaching to this under the current budget? And as neighbors, also, we are very concerned about what's going on, and we would like to see a more effective and integrated response, and not only measures that allow them to bring them here without further perspective or a bigger solution. Over to you.
So, Christine, are we having any sign that that there's been any uptick seriously from DC, different than what we talked about last week? So what she said was no significant increases come out of DC. So this is, whatever you're seeing is not driven by that to this point. And I know the mayor's made a big deal about that they've found a lot of shelter space. They've been able to take a lot of people there. We're trying to expand shelter space. That's why I started by thanking this community for asking us to put a shelter up here. So working with them, we'll find a place and we'll get a shelter up here.
Well, maybe the numbers are not increasing, but what we're seeing is that given that we have different business and other areas, they like to stay in our place, you know. So, that's bringing some issues already with the community. The local police is informed they have been taking action. And the neighbors are starting to be concerned. Almost some of them are starting to carry certain defensive aspects, and we don't think that's the way. So that's why we are talking with you about it.
So is Ruben here? Ruben, can you find out what neighborhood this is so we can talk with both the police but also our social service people? Okay.
This one.
Okay.
Thank you.
County Executive, let's take a question here from the online participants. With the recent federal budget cuts, can you clarify whether Montgomery County is anticipating job reductions and how those cuts might affect essential county services?
So we are expecting job reductions. I mean, I take Trump seriously. And if he says he's going to, has to cut all these jobs to provide tax breaks, I'm sure he's going to do that. And it's, concerning. We don't know where they're going to come. We don't know the departments. We don't know what funding we're going to get cut. That's not clear to us, what programs they're going to kill. So we're just, kind of playing it by ear as we see the letters they send us and tell us what they're going to do, what programs they're not going to fund, then we will manage it and figure out how we work around it. But I can't predict what it's going to be.
Okay. I think the question was related to job reductions within Montgomery County government.
We haven't seen job reductions in Montgomery County government.
If you anticipate.
I don't, and that's a really hard question. I mean, it depends how bad the cut in revenues is. If they do things that result in hundreds of millions of dollars less money, we're going to have very limited options on how to deal with it. If it's a number we can deal with, I think we can manage it. I'm not as concerned about cutting county jobs yet. I am concerned about maintaining service levels. I think with a lot of the social services, and I think most of you know this, most of our social services get delivered by nonprofit partners. And those would be the places that are likely to be hit by this. And that's, those are the things we worry about. But I can't, unless I know what the numbers are, it's hard to promise what we're going to do.
Thank you. It is 8:57. I guess you will take the last two questions of the folks who are standing.
Sure.
And then we'll wrap it up for the evening. Thank you.
Oh, you're going to hold it for me? I just wanted to clarify what the UCAB had asked for in our letter to you, and you're very generous to step in and say you'll, bring us a center up here, a shelter. But considering all the limited resources and everything the county is going to have to do to address the current situation and the strain on the resources that we currently have, specifically what we had asked for was a task force to look at the increased number of people experiencing homelessness in the Up County and come up with possible solutions, including perhaps a drop-in center for day services where our nonprofits could come together for showers, laundry, etc. There has to be an interim step. As much as it would be great to have another shelter up here, we know that the shelters right now, there's been a lot of activity going on, and so I just wanted to be really clear about what we would really like to see, which is fiscally possible in the near future.
The stuff you're talking about is not the most expensive stuff in the world. We should be able to manage a drop-in space? I mean, Christine, is there, is there,
We heard that here tonight.
is there a committee that was created to, or you guys are creating to talk about what they wanted up here? Because I know one of the things they asked for was a committee to work with.
Yes, we've started having conversations with different, different county leadership. Yeah.
Yes, it's already started. I believe that Marilyn Balcom has started that process along with Ruben and with
Oh, good. Thank you, Marilyn.
Christine. Okay, last question?
Yes. Hey, Mark, it's Tyler. We met a week or so ago. Nice to see you again. I still owe you an email, so I appreciate that. Some of my friends have already spoke. I'm not going to rehash their comments. But one thing I will say is that, excuse me, we know that when atrocities happen around the world that are a part of the war machine, every person who makes a choice is culpable in that decision, right? Our county is just as culpable as the federal government. We have made choices to invite businesses. Lockheed Martin is an example. Ayers Labs is another example. There are several others, right? The budget is a moral document. And so, excuse me, what I'm trying to explain to folks, and I would ask everyone in this room, are the benefits that we get from these businesses worth the cost to your conscience, to my conscience, to all of our consciences in this room? No. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's not worth it to me. And so I'm asking you in public, are the benefits that the weapons manufacturers bring to Montgomery County worth the costs that they have for your conscience?
Montgomery County not housing Lockheed Martin, for example, is not going to make Lockheed Martin go away. It's not going to stop them from producing what they produce, and it changes absolutely nothing in the world. So if I'm going to engage in a fight over something, I'll fight over something where I can change something where it has a tangible outcome. I'm not going to fight in tilted windmills if I don't think it's going to make any difference. There's, philosophically, I wish everybody were disarmed, and we're not, nobody, not just us, everybody would step back and figure out how they solve things peacefully. That is not the world I live on. I know full well that, because of what people, for example, have seen with drones, there is a realization that we're vulnerable to stuff we had never imagined before. And I guarantee you, you're going to see more of an effort in, at state or federal levels to think about what do you build in order to respond to drone attacks. I hate this cycle of things, but it's something that we are in, and I cannot think of an off-ramp for something that's not going to change the overall situation. So I'm not happy with where we are. I wish we were in a different place, but we are where we are.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Y cuando los eventos se continúan realizando año a año, son porque son un éxito.